Hello, everyone. My name is Lacey Berman. I'm an assistant director in student life. Welcome to my ICE event. Thanks for being adaptable as we change the format of some of our longstanding traditions and requirements at USC Aiken. Today's ICE event is on ethics and leadership and how those two subjects go together and interact. My presentation is called What's Ethics Got to Do with It? So we will go ahead and jump right in. First, what is an ethic? Well, on a personal level, ethics are the decisions, choices, and behaviors, note all of those things are action words, that reflect and enact or show other people what our values are in real time. Ethics are a greater reflection of the whole of our values and not just what we want them to be. They show the reality of who we are. In terms of society, ethics are also what we study and consider to be right or wrong to a set of code of standards for ourselves. And so when it comes to a society, ethics are typically what we come together and decide on how our society or how our group of people will and will not act. So why do they exist? Well, the answer is right there in the slide, but it's a shared understanding to coexist. So ethics allow us to set the stage for shared understanding of what will and will not be accepted in a group. This can look different in each society, so thinking about the different laws and codes of conduct that exist in other countries, and then even thinking about the cultural nuances and understandings that exist from one state, city, country, nation to the next. Those things all have to be considered when we're thinking about ethics and those shared understandings. When it comes to ethics and making tough decisions, there are three questions you can default to in order to bring yourself back into balance. Those questions are: one, is it legal? This is where the societal ethics that I was talking about will likely be clearly defined. Is it legal in my place of residence or in the place in which I'm visiting or not? So that's typically pretty black and white. The second question is it balanced? Simply because something may be legal, that might not mean that it is balanced. One person or group may be on the losing end of a legally sound decision. So that's something that's not quite as clear as the first question. The third question is how will it make me feel about myself? This question is set apart from the former two because it will be different for each individual. At the end of the day, how will you cope with your decision concerning an ethical dilemma? That's something that only you can answer. There's a lot of talk about ethics because it depends. A lot of things are situational, and while you may feel okay about one situation, you may feel differently about another. Human emotion and how we relate to people in a circumstance can change from day to day. So, how do we get ethics? Where do they come from? Well, the answer is values. So, if you remember at the beginning, ethics are the decisions, choices, and behaviors that reflect and enact what our values are in real time. Our values are the guiding principles in which we live our lives. Values reflect what we care about and what is important to us. I like to think of them as the blueprint of your life. The interesting thing about values is they're not technically aspirational. They are what you are and where you are right now. Sure, there's an aspirational aspect, but your current actions reflect your current values. For example, if there are two parts of understanding values. So understanding yourself enough to know what they currently are is the first step. So having a sense of self-awareness to reflect on what your actions are and how that reflects what your values are. And then the second piece is seeing where you want to be and making changes to reflect that, if applicable. For example, if I say that one of my values is health and wellness, but my actions prove otherwise. So, say I'm disregarding my medical doctor's advice, I have various practices that are known to not be in line with a healthy and well lifestyle. That might not actually be a value of mine, right? That might be an aspirational value, and I can identify goals and make changes in order to reach that, but it's not currently a value that reflects my actions. So there are kind of two aspects when it comes to values. So, in order to understand ethics a little bit better, we want to identify and define your values. So, for this slide, I have a quick activity for you. So I want you to pull out a piece of paper or prepare to write something down or take notes on your phone. But look at this list of values. And I want you to write down all of the ones that stick out to you or are important to you, or you can even add your own. So take about a minute to do that. Wonderful. Now that you have that list of all those values that stick out to you, it's time to narrow it down. So we're going to take about another minute and choose the top 10. Feel free to lump things together if there are some themes there. So if you selected both honesty and integrity, those have similar meanings and can fall under the same categories if you'd like to do that. So take about a minute to choose your top 10. Wonderful. Now that you have your top 10, it's time to narrow it down even further. This step can be a little bit more difficult because you feel like you're having to sacrifice some of your values for others, but that's not necessarily the point. It really is to help you narrow down and see what, in a terms of the priorities, what are your top priorities when it comes to your values? Just because you rank something as number 10 does not mean that it's not important to you, does not mean that it's not important to you. So we're going to take another minute and narrow down those 10 to 3 to 5 values that you can really rely on. So when someone asks you, what are your values? You know off the top of your head your 3 to 5 values that you're able to share with other people. So take another minute to narrow down those values. Wonderful. So now that you have your 3 to 5 values, really think about what those look like in action for you. So the first step is to identify them, which you've done. So congratulations. And then the second step is to define what they look like for you. So if one of my values is respect, how do I live that out on a daily basis? What does respect mean for me? Does that mean I am polite when talking to other people? Or does it mean that I am on time because I respect other people's time? I think it could be both of those things, but really figuring out for yourself what does this value look like in action is going to help. Also, note that your values can change and fluctuate over time as you grow and change as people. So, it is definitely normal for if you look forward a year from now, your values might look different depending on where you are in life, what has changed for you, or how you've grown as a person. So, know that your values fluctuate and change over time, and that is completely normal. In terms of ethical situations, now that you have an understanding of your values, you can feel a little more confident facing different situations where ethics come into play. There are a couple of different types of situations and other things to consider. The first one would be an ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma is a situation where both options on the table are ethical or are unethical, and you have to make a decision. So, for example, say that you are a salesperson who your first goal is to make money, but you know that there is a flaw in the product that you're trying to sell. You're in an ethical dilemma. So, do you continue to sell the product where your goal is to make a profit, or do you select to be honest about the flaws involved with the product that you're selling? So, for you, you have to decide which value for you is a priority. Is it the profit or is it the honesty? So knowing your values clearly are going to help you make these type of decisions definitely more clearly and concisely. The next one is gray area. Gray area is an unsure place. So this is where, the decision isn't black and white. It isn't choosing between just one value or another value. It is, there's a lot to be considered in these types of situations. And so maybe an example for this is when you're writing a paper for a class and you're citing an online resource, you know that it's not your work, but you're not sure how to do so correctly. So to what extent do you cite this source, if at all? This might be a gray area, and then figuring out how to move forward from there. The next one is conflict of interest. So, this is where maybe you are in a position of power, but your influence is conflicting with your personal values or beliefs. So, say that you're an officer in a student organization and you're voting on a new executive council. You're preceding the vote, but your best friend is running for one of the positions. So, will your values, will your reputation be called into question if your best friend wins? Will people think that you swayed the vote one way or another for that person? So, really avoiding those conflict of interest situations is going to be your best bet. And then the next one is corruption. So, corruption is being in a position of power and accepting favors like money or influence to play to the other party's interests. So, this is when someone else maybe bribes you, gives you money to make a decision or put something into place that they want to happen. So, you're really just acting as the middle person and allowing your power and influence to be taken by another person in order to have personal gain. Some things to consider in ethical situations are courage, empathy, independence, and integrity. So, for courage, it takes a lot of courage to really stand up and stand by the values that you have. Um, so, something that comes to mind for me is whistleblowing when it comes to courage. And whistleblowing is when an organization or a company has a practice that maybe one or two people are clearly violating, but no one says anything. When whistleblowing happens, someone actually steps up and sheds some light on the situation, and they might not know what's going to happen. They might lose their job. They might lose their reputation. So there's a lot at stake for that person, but they have the courage to stick to their values and do what's right in their eyes. So courage is something that you really have to have and figure out how to maintain that throughout ethical situations. Empathy is another one, and that's really understanding that the other people that you're dealing with may also be in a difficult situation, and how can you act with humanity? Like I said, not everything is going to be black and white, and so how can you see the perspective of everyone involved with the situation? And that's going to help you make your ethical decisions. Independence is tuning into your own values and resisting allowing others' values to influence you. So that it really is, again, being strong in your own values, knowing what those are, and not letting other people sway you. And then integrity is understanding your own values and acting on those. And so that is really just aligning your actions with what you say your actions ought to be. So remember, is it legal? Is it balanced? And how will it make you feel? Now it's time to put your own values to the test. I have a dilemma for you that I'm going to read aloud, and it's time for you to think about where your values come into play in this type of situation. So here is the dilemma. You are the treasurer for your student organization. Your group is going on a ski trip in 3 weeks, and you've been collecting money from the members participating. You currently have $500 in cash ready to be deposited into your organization's account. Your roommate, who is also a member of your organization, has come to you in a state of panic. They share that their partner has gotten in a car accident and is in the hospital. They ask you to borrow $400 of the ski trip money to purchase a plane ticket to go and visit their partner. They assure you that no one will know because it's cash and you haven't deposited it yet. They promise to pay you back in a week. They have a part-time job at a grocery store. Do you give them the money or not? What considerations are there when it comes to you making this decision? Do you go down the list of your values? Would it be different if it were your friend's mother versus their partner? What if that person were in the ICU? What if your roommate didn't have a job to pay you back? Do any of these things change what your answer might be? You can see how your own values, what is acceptable within the organization, and the situation at hand all come into play. Even if you change out one fact, your answer might change. That is why ethics are so dynamic and often complicated when it comes to leadership, because even if the tiniest detail changes, then the whole answer might change too. To end this presentation, I have 10 rules for ethical decision making. So here they are. Number 1 is the 6 o'clock news rule. I will do this knowing that I can go live on the evening news and defend it. 2, the no one will know rule. If I do this because no one will know, I might be doing it for the wrong reason. 3, the abdominal dissonance rule. I've got a bad feeling about this. 4, the only this once rule. If I plan to do something only this once, I'm not consistent and I better not. 5, the alter ego rule. When in doubt, I should talk to someone outside the situation with different perspectives to help me clarify my own view. 6, the dictator rule. If orders from my superior contradict my legal, professional, or personal ethical standards, I better not follow them. 7, the politician rule. I must deal straight with people, even if I can't promise them all they would like to hear. 8, the long run rule. I will not use unethical means to obtain short-term gains. It's about long-run trust. 9, the self-esteem rule. What makes me a better me? Unethical action erodes self-confidence. And 10, the platinum rule. Treat others how they want to be treated. Thank you for joining me for this ICE event. I hope that you've enjoyed it and learned a little bit more about your own personal values and how to deal with ethical situations, especially in a leadership role. Have a good day.